MacGregor was kind enough to volunteer to put together this roundup of news. The idea here was really just to have discussion with the group. He's going to kind of present a bunch of news items here, and I think for this to be the most valuable is get people's input, feedback, experience with different changes or opinions about what's going on in the mobile world. So I'll introduce Matthew. So he's been running bookstores for about 14 years now. He's manager over at Barnes & Noble. And in his spare time, enjoys developing in Java and .NET. Is going to talk today about some mobile news. So I'll turn it over to Matthew.
All right, thanks a lot, Jeff. So yeah, as Jeff just said, I think the best thing is if we can get a discussion going on some of these news items. I think the news is important. I'm a tech lover, so I follow this stuff, right? But I'm also a business person, and I understand that we're all having to make these strategic decisions, and it's coming up really fast now. It seems like every time I flip on my computer, another posting, something hitting the wire regarding mobile, and so again today we'll go through some of these news items and. I don't claim to be an expert on any of them. So if you've heard something I haven't, I'd love to know about it. Now one of the first things that I took a look at was just last time. How many of you were here last month? Okay, about half of us. One of the things that came up in the discussion was BlackBerry, and what happened to BlackBerry? You don't hear about it the way you hear about iOS, you hear about Android. You haven't been hearing about BlackBerry in the news as much. So one of the first things I pulled up were actually some of the popularity ratings worldwide for the mobile OSs. And we'll take a look at a slide in a minute. But I think is really interesting. It shows some trends. I was a little bit surprised by it just based on the amount of, you hear, Android ads constantly, you see iPhone, iPad ads constantly, but taking a look at this, so Symbian is still right at the top of that list, and iPhone you can see is the green one, and you can actually see it's kind of taken a little bit of a dip down, right? And down at the bottom here, the kind of reddish one that you see climbing, that's Android. That wasn't what I was expecting. From the media and everything, I was kind of expecting Android to be quite a bit higher. And this is worldwide statistics, but pretty interesting. And the green line here, kind of third one down, that's actually research in motion. So that's our BlackBerry. There, still a major player and climbing worldwide. What do you guys think of this? Yeah.
So I apologize, but the second one down is iPhone. I can't really see color that well. So
Yeah,
okay.
it's iPhone.
So iPhone's the one going.
There might be a laser pointer on it too.
There
There might be a laser pointer on it.
Oh, is it?
Maybe.
Hey, check it out. Yep, that one right there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's iPhone. I wasn't expecting that at all. I'm not sure that holds true just, in the U.S. necessarily, but I do wonder if maybe that's got something to do with the rise in Android. Those two are going head to head, right?
Is this devices or OSs?
This is OSs.
So the first question would be is how do you develop for this Symbian OS?
I don't know. Does anybody know?
TI-85.
Anything else on this slide? I thought this was kind of interesting.
It's like Symbian. I suppose you're just talking about mass number of devices, and not all of them are smartphones, I guess. But
Yeah, well, exactly. One of the slides coming up shows, Java ME2 or whatever that is, it's 2 billion installed, but it's not smartphones, right? It's running Java on all these phones, but it's not what we think of, you think of like an iPhone or something like that. Still, huge installed base.
I guess it's interesting that BlackBerry is at the same rate as Android, essentially, if I'm looking at that correct.
I couldn't believe it. because you just don't, it's just, you don't hear about it. You don't see it in the news the same way. Although BlackBerry, there's a slide, coming up, BlackBerry's coming out with a tablet. They've obviously got a really strong hold on the business market. So, good platform to develop for.
And you're a Java developer. Do you develop for BlackBerry then, or? Just wondering if anybody's used the Torch.
Anybody?
We have one in the office and we developed an app for it. A programmer that worked on it isn't here right now, but we have done some with the Torch.
All right, IBM did a survey. They basically surveyed developers, and what they found out is everybody agrees mobile is where it's at. It is going to surpass all other computing platforms expected by 2015. 63% of developers said they are don't feel as confident in the mobile space as they do in developing for other platforms. That's why we're here today. And the quote was, "We know mobile's important. Developers might not have the right skills to go about developing for the iPad, iPhone, and Android, or BlackBerry." So Apple obviously has been leading the charge in mobile. Here's how they're doing right now. They announced over 300,000 apps in the App Store, which is huge. 1,000 new apps per day. 206,000 apps that cost something, and 94,000 are free. And their stock price hit an all-time high, $318 in the middle of October. The iPad is now the most quickly adopted non-phone electronic device ever. Faster adoption rates than the DVD player. And selling 4.5 million units per quarter. What do you think?
You drop the price.
Yeah, drop the price, yeah. Some competition might not be bad.
Is anybody else doing anything with iPads out there?
I'm sorry.
Is anybody else developing an iPad type device?
Yes. Yeah.
And what else is?
Samsung is doing an Android tablet.
The Galaxy tab, yeah.
What's the BlackBerry equivalent?
It is expensive, although
BlackPad? They still call it the BlackPad, the BlackBerry one?
I think it's called the
Playbook.
Playbook. That's right. That's what it is. There, I included some devices that we can look at, but honestly, once you start surfing for tablets coming out, it's insane. Everybody is developing tablets.
You think there's going to be a problem where there's just going to be too many platforms, and there's going to have to be a universal, web apps, or web interface for these? I can't imagine that long term, or maybe they're going to keep them all separate. So if you have to develop an app, you can develop an app for 3 different devices or X number of devices.
I personally think that could be a big obstacle, but we're kind of in the shakeout period right now, right? Apple's been dominating. Android is on the rise, but in 5 years, I think this marketplace is going to look really different. We've got a lot of new platforms coming that may be really strong. We don't know. Windows Phone 7 is launching now. How's that going to do? I don't know. HP's announced WebOS 2 and their Palm 2 devices. They bought Palm earlier in the year. How's that going to do? I don't know. I don't think anybody does, but I think for a while there are going to be tons of platforms, and that might mean tons of opportunity, but it means a lot of risk too, right? You develop an app, you might be going after a platform that's not as doesn't have the installed base, but it doesn't have the number of applications. You're going up against 300,000 in the App Store. How do you get your app noticed? That's tough. But if you look right now, Windows Phone 7, I can't remember what they call it, but basically their marketplace, there are a few thousand. It's nothing like this, but give it a few months. But if you get it now, depending on how that platform does, that might be a real opportunity. So, I don't know. It's like the Wild West.
I thought it was interesting, Zuckerberg, they were commenting on why there's no Facebook app for the iPad.
Yeah.
He said not a mobile device, from the standpoint of like an iPhone or et cetera. Thought that was
That
interesting.
is really interesting.
I think it's annoying if someone is an iPad user, but
True.
Really? He said that?
hey, you just set it up an event yesterday or day before?
Because it was a mobile event.
Yeah.
They were targeting phones.
So this one's not strictly mobile, but Apple deprecated Java on Mac OS 10. And the little, you may not be able to read it down there, but that's actually from Oracle's website, the little screenshot there. And it's on the download page where you go to download your JVM. And it says under OS 10, Apple Computer supplies their own version of Java, but not anymore. And Oracle hasn't agreed to maintain it for Mac. So what does this mean? I honestly have no idea. Obviously, Apple has been resistant to having any virtual machines on their mobile devices for a long time. We went through the whole Flash thing this year, and various, the developer licensing that prevented cross-compilation and that kind of thing. Now they've backed off of that a little bit, but it does seem like they're centering around their own technologies and kind of holding off on others. I don't know if this is related. I don't know if it's just simply they don't want to maintain it anymore, and they think, Oracle maintains Java for Windows. Why wouldn't they maintain it for Mac? But what do you guys think of this?
Does it mean things like they won't even support the plugins, like the JREs for going to weather sites that have applets running?
Yeah. Yeah. So right now, and I'm not a Mac user, so this is based on kind of information from people I don't have them. But for Java, it's been okay. It's been a little behind the latest on Mac, right? But you get it from whatever the repository is for that, right? You don't download it. If I want it for Windows, I download it from the site and install it. It's not like that. So right now there's no maintainer for Java on Mac. And I think this might point a little bit to, what I was saying, Android and iOS are going head to head. And I kind of feel, they're pulling away. Like, if you do Java stuff, you either go towards the Android side, or you're gonna kind of set those tools aside for a while and go learn Objective-C and learn that stuff. But it seems like the middle ground is getting smaller. You're gonna kind of choose. So, talking about mobile, all those sales of iPads are obviously having an impact on other categories. Sales of netbooks and laptops are down. Actually, you can see laptop sales rose 12.3%, but that's against rising 30% the same period last year. So obviously sales have slowed and dropped 1% during back to school. Yes. Which is the biggest selling period for laptops. So the fact that it actually dropped during that time period is not good for laptops. 14% of online consumers plan to buy a tablet in 12 months. 13% planning to buy a laptop. 11 for an ebook reader. 8 for netbook. And 8 for a desktop computer. So tablets, that's definitely going to be the growth over the next year. What we were just talking about a few minutes ago, there's going to be a flood of tablets. I can't believe that it's been this long since the iPad launched and we haven't really seen a competitor yet. But when they come, I think it'll be fast and furious for a while. Most of them are going to be running Android. At the same time, Android is growing like crazy. They're expecting to see huge growth. It's up 561% from a year ago. That's activations. 55 million units expected to sell in 2010. And they did get more than 100,000 apps now in the Android marketplace. So I think everything I read, everybody's talking about Android right now. that takes me to the next section. Layer up. Android is coming under some fire. Lots and lots and lots of lawsuits going on in mobile space right now. The big one versus Android is Google and Oracle. Okay, Oracle is suing Google over some patents. Oracle bought Sun earlier this year, picked up their patents for Java. Google built Android, and they created what's called the Dalvik executable environment, right? It's Java essentially, but it's a clean room implementation of Java. And they use Project Harmony for the libraries. And it turns out Oracle has some patents on some of this stuff that Google may not have respected. In addition to that, Oracle is refusing to grant the necessary licenses for Project Harmony. And from everything I've read, this may be an actual serious threat to Android. What are they planning to do? I have no idea. Do they just want licensing, and so they're gonna get some money, out of this, or does this point to what I was talking about before? They've had Java Amini out there, and it's been extremely successful on mobile devices. But maybe there's a way of turning. They may have their own plans in the mobile space, and they're interested in protecting their IP. So, what do you guys think? So, Android, huge player. It's coming under fire. You're a developer.
I think this has a little bit to do also with Apple dropping support for Java. When they first started doing this, it was all owned by Sun, and Sun pretty much gave it away for free, didn't really enforce their patents. Now that Oracle has it, they're really getting strict on it, so I don't think it's as fun to deal with as it used to be.
No. That's true. Yeah, I think Sun was always a little bit, I don't know. They had the patents. I don't think they had the wherewithal to go after the patents, but I don't think they would have even if they did. Oracle's different. Larry Ellison? Yeah. We're probably going to see a lot of lawsuits.
I just don't see Google laying down, obviously, for Oracle in any sense of imagination. As far as being a threat to, like, oh, maybe we shouldn't develop an Android to be gone in here. I mean, personally, I don't think that'll happen.
It's hard to imagine. Although, what they're asking for right now is they're basically saying that Google needs to recall all of Android that they've put out there with the, in violation of patent. And of course, that's legal blustering, right? I can't imagine that happening, but it is possible that Google may have to start paying quite a bit to Oracle for these patents, unless they mount a successful legal defense. And they did ask, in October, they asked the court to find the patents invalid. So we'll see where that goes. But right now,
It's also politics.
yeah,
I mean, you file a lawsuit like this and get it into the papers and all of a sudden your stock drops.
yeah, that's true.
I mean, it's all tactics, right?
Yeah,
I mean, in any lawsuit I've read, hardly anybody ever wins.
that's true.
So why would you do it in the first place unless you didn't have an ulterior motives? Go ahead.
Distraction factor.
Yeah.
If you want to slow someone down in the marketplace for whatever strategic reason, throw a bunch of lawyers at it, and you get things
Get it
slowed
into the
down.
media.
There's probably going to be a ton of cash that changes hands over this. That probably means two things for Google. One is obviously they're going to have to take money away from R&D to pay off some of what they basically got at this point. The second part of it is that they're probably already working on a replacement for Java at this moment because they just can't live with that liability being that tied to someone else's IP. So again, that's building stuff that they didn't have to build before. So it'll probably slow them down a bit, but we're talking about such huge numbers here and so much money. I don't think it threatens the existence of Android or anything. But then you can look for Oracle to become more of a player in the next few years.
Well, I think so. Yeah. So I can't imagine. It's not going anywhere. I can't imagine that.
With them, isn't HTC being sued by Apple or something over some patent infringements of the Android OS because Google isn't making people pay for licenses for of it, so they don't go after Google, they go after the device manufacturers.
Sure, yeah, the lawsuit, the chain of lawsuits is really convoluted right now. Microsoft is actually, last year I think, Microsoft sued HTC over Android patents, and HTC just folded. And, I never heard the end of this, but it turns out they just folded. They're now paying Microsoft for every copy of Android they install on their phones. Which, you talk about where's the money coming from this whole deal. It's cost, Android's free, but is it really free? It's costing Google now a ton of lawyer fees and possibly licensing payouts. So it gets interesting, like where's the money trails?
Well, it's like Patrick said, maybe this is a tactic for Oracle to get into the marketplace. Maybe, who knows, 2 months from now we see Oracle release something that we've never seen before. It might become a major player.
You think, you figure they acquired Sun, and Sun had an operating system. Yeah, they had a vicious hardware division.
If you want to look into this piece right here, I'd go back and see what Oracle's done in the last 3 years. Piece it all together, and I bet you can see a trend of where they're going.
Yeah, it's interesting.
What I find most interesting is you're picking on Google. I don't know. It seems like a fight you don't want to fight.
Well, it was weird too because Oracle and Google, the biggest users of Java, right? Out there. Biggest users of Java. Going ahead. Microsoft announced suing Motorola over 9 patent violations for Android phones. Patents include synchronizing email, calendars and contacts, scheduling meetings, and notifying applications of changes in signal strength and battery power. Time for the launch of Windows Phone 7. That's pretty much what a smartphone does. So,
Yeah.
Everything will make a call.
That's right. It's going to be interesting. More patent wars. So last year, Nokia sued Apple. Apple's going back at Nokia now in British court this time over the same set of issues. So Motorola is suing Apple. Apple's suing Motorola. Gemalto, which makes the chipset, is suing Android. And Apple and Gemalto are now in partnership. So again, you kind of see how the battle lines are drawing, like Apple and Android, and lots and lots of lawsuits going on with Android right now. I think that's going to cost Google and partners a ton. And this is the diagram of who's suing who in this whole mess. And this is from the New York Times. So.
Does it turn out then it's just a wash? Apple's spending money to defend themselves and sue people, and Google's doing the same thing.
I think most of these things settle for those reasons because, it's my patents against your patents, right? So we'll find out some middle ground in there.
It's interesting, it looks like Nokia is the most.
Yeah, there's a lot of arrows pointing out for the kids.
It's not surprising though, because you got a lot of software companies getting into hardware. So the hardware people are all going, wait a minute. We were here 12 years before you even thought of a phone.
Yeah.
And you're going to step on the patents no matter what you do.
Yeah. But you remember that? Remember this was years and years ago. One year during the Super Bowl, Microsoft showed this it was like a tabletop. You could do your pictures and the surface. So that thing turns out they got a lot of patents on that. Now those same gestures are what everybody's using for their phones. So that's where a lot of these patents are coming into play. It's really, it's fascinating. So, as I said, Android's free. But what about the lawyers? How does this impact open source? I think it's interesting because Java is open source in that case, right? But obviously there are patents that are involved in that. It's not so open in that case. Android's open source, but again, they're getting sued off right now. So, I don't know the answer to that.
I heard an interesting conversation, I think it was this week in Google maybe, about Android's open source, but it's really not open source until they release the next code revision. So there aren't people adding into the base code until it's released, and then you can get it and screw around with themselves.
It's a really closed, the people who have commit access to Android is really a group. And so it's a really closed system, but after, you're right, after they've done release than they would play with it. The development cycle is a little different. I don't know what's actually going to change because of the lawsuits. Maybe nothing. I mean, from a developer angle, maybe nothing comes out of this. Maybe there are some big changes. We may not see it. Some of the smaller players, this may be a deciding factor, depending on how vicious this gets. So let's see. And the patent system is obviously involved. Everybody has patents against everybody else. So at some point, you do have to kind of wonder what's going on there. Are they really protecting intellectual property at this point, or really, in the case of this Oracle lawsuit, clearly they've acquired Sun and they've acquired these patents, and they say, okay, we're going to get some money off these patents or something strategic based on that. Is that the patent system working at its best? And they hold those for what, 20 years? Is that right? I don't know. All right, moving on to platform and devices. There's tons and tons of stuff going on. We've got first off, some kind of frameworks and applications. I thought this was interesting. I just chose a handful that illustrates something that's going on. Skyfire app was approved for the App Store, so the deal with this is no Flash on the iPhone. Flash, but this will translate Flash to HTML5 on the fly in the cloud. I don't know how it does this. And so you can watch your videos, but it doesn't support games right now. It doesn't support Hulu, which is a big minus. It's been available for Android, and it's been very popular on the Android platform. I think this is a great example of some developers seeing a need. They actually hired a bunch of people who were really unhappy that Apple wasn't supporting Flash, and found a way around it, and they're going to be selling this app, and I'm sure they're going to be selling a ton of it. So
I have the news on that.
yeah, tell me.
It's gone. It's
No
on
way.
the App Store. It lasted, I think, 2 days. What they do basically is they host the Flash on a virtual browser, a virtual machine, and
Yeah.
you connect that to proxy. So you're not actually running Flash on your machine, you're just getting screenshots of Flash running on remotely.
Yeah.
But their server, they didn't have the infrastructure to handle it. The demand was so high that they had to pull the plug because the user experience was so poor. So they'll be back. They are approved. It's just that they have to acquire a lot more hardware to pull it off.
Is a VM running every single?
Yeah. So when you connect, you have your own essentially VM. For
That's
that
efficient.
Flash. Yeah, I know. It's huge. So they just, when they hit the App Store and Flash, it's just, slam. But it'll be back. It's just, for right now, it's lights out while you're usual.
That's great. Yeah, I thought this was interesting too. Obviously, approval for the App Store has been tricky for applications, and here's one that, despite kind of obviously working against some of the stated goals of Apple, they did approve it, and now it's showing a real user.
They pulled it. Skyfire pulled it.
Yeah, we must have had to.
How is Skyfire making money on?
They sell the app.
They're selling the app, but I mean, in the long run, for the bandwidth costs, I'm just curious how they're planning to make money.
It'd be interesting. It's hard for me to believe they sold that many on Android before that. I don't remember the price, but it was $299 or something like that. And so $299 times 1.5 million takes 70%. It's probably not.
Isn't native Flash available on Android, or am I just? Yeah. So I don't know what the reason would be.
I think so.
What the reason for it would be.
On Android.
Right.
Yeah. Phone gap. I highlighted this one. This is another app that has been kind of a question mark, and basically this is a framework that allows you to do your development in kind of more standard web technologies, and then kind of compile it for the iPhone, similar to Titanium Developer or something like that. It has been sort of tricky to get these apps into the App Store, but they've officially done a technical review of this technology and have decided they will start making decisions not on whether it uses PhoneGap or not, but on the merits of the application itself. So that's probably a really positive thing. There was a question kind of earlier brought up about too many platforms, and I think this is one of the ways to answer that question is stuff like Titanium and you know, the PhoneGap and other technologies that allow you to do most of your code in one thing and compile for the different platforms. And if you're trying to write apps for all these platforms, it's going to be really, really hard. So I think that's really good news for developers. Does anybody use PhoneGap?
We use Titanium.
Yeah.
Check it out. For the very reason you spoke of, cross-platform capabilities.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of Titanium. What do you think of it?
Well, you know, I invested some time checking it out, and then they came up with an update, which basically blew away everything I knew about their APIs. I'm going to start over again. And then they came up with a pricing structure, which for just an individual developer comes to about $200 a month. So I just thought I ditched it.
Yeah, that was a
You
decided.
buy a lot of Objective-C books with $200.
So anyway, with the pricing structures on this, I mean, one thing for me is, you know, I haven't really played with any of them. Now it's like, now you're getting fragmentation of these things. Like you got Titanium, you got this thing. You can do some Ruby stuff, I think, on iPhone. It's just like, okay, now we have so many things that we can go cross-platform with. It starts getting, well, this thing only works on Titanium, or this thing only works on PhoneGap. It's nice if they came together and said, okay, we're all going to make one big cross-platform thing that, you know, executes HTML and JavaScript.
Well, it may be that the marketplace will shake that out. You know, if Titanium is doing great, and you know they're growing in popularity, maybe just by they would come to one, or it's PhoneGap, or it's something else, or maybe it goes the way of like Java web frameworks, where there are like 500 of them now. You know, there's too much. It's hard to know, but it's definitely. I mean, you've got to make some choices. We were talking about this before the meeting. Just as a developer, there's too much to learn. There's too much to know, and you've got to make some strategic choices, which is why I'm so interested in the news. Try to find out what those should be.
I think you're gonna see what we saw in Windows and Apple. I think you're gonna see just a couple of players 10 years from now.
Yeah, and
Because it's going to be dictated by the market. It's going to be dictated by the end users, right? So the end users are going to be so fed up with, well, do I get a BlackBerry? Do I get an iPhone? Do I get an Android? Do I get a Windows phone? That it's just two guys are going to take over, and that's probably what's going to end up happening. Or maybe, if we're lucky, they'll find some cross-platforming. But I mean, it's going to be the same thing with the personal computers, really.
could be, and it could be a player that we haven't even seen yet.
That's right.
It may not be Android and iOS in 10 years. So, but it could also be. I mean, when you think about mobile's a little different, right? Because basically, you've got your app store on there, and you do everything through your phone. So it's not the same. It's compatibility hell for the developer side, but for the user side, they may not care if it's got the same apps in each store, or they may not even know. I mean, hey, I didn't know what I was missing. So it's possible that we may see continued fragmentation with lots and lots of players each having 10% of the market and no monopoly on it.
That's what I wonder about the most is that a lot of this stuff that's going on right now and what we're talking about is so invisible to the consumer side. And so, you know, Facebook on your phone is just like Facebook on your phone. It's like Windows 7, it's kind of built in, there's no app, and Windows 7 phone, and the different I mean, I just don't think, that's where I start to wonder, and I'm trying to think through in my head how the market forces actually work in this scenario. Is it like boycotting, you know, writing apps for phones, you know, when mobile's exploding so much right now? So it's like, I think it's a while, and it's real bumpy, and it's, you know, just a lot of volatility being a developer in the mobile market.
It's wild.
I mean, the reason I agree with that is because, you know, let's just say you take the framework of, okay, developers are going to take the lead on where things go. It's like, I don't want to develop for iPhone. Okay, there's 10 other guys that will. You know what I mean? There's no, like conglomeration of, okay, we're just all going to boycott everything else and do this.
Developer
It's like-
union.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want to do it, okay, you will. And then if you don't want to do that, the next guy over there, he'll do it for Windows Phone. It's like, everybody's willing to take a stab at it.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and if you're a big company, you're going to need developers for Android, iOS, WebOS. You don't want to miss any of these platforms, right? Windows Phone 7. And my own company is a good example of that. We've gotten into the mobile space in the last 2 years, and we've got e-reader apps on everything you can dream of now. And we've had to find developers who can do all that. So it might be good for we'll all specialize. We'll work on these apps. So Adobe Air, does anyone develop on Air here? Yeah. I don't know anything about it really, so
It's
you guys fill us in. New update.
2.5, yeah.
Yep, 2.5. It's been obviously cross-platform, but adding some mobile devices, including Android, BlackBerry, and iOS. Tablet OS is in the article. I don't know what that is. Supports some new stuff for mobile devices, which is great, and added their own app stores. Tell us about Air.
I mean, I don't know a lot. I just know the basics, but I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of the opinion that, yeah, it's cross-platform, but don't fool yourself. It's still sort of in its infancy. I mean, you see some great stuff like TweetDeck and etc., but there are definitely quirks about it, like as far as interfacing with the native. Anytime you want to like play stuff off the screen, I mean, Air sometimes chokes on. It doesn't know how to handle things on Mac versus Windows as well. And you end up doing a lot of things, like for example, for your dock icons on Mac versus your taskbar. And you don't just say, put this thing on my user's tray or whatever you want to call it. It's like you have to say, okay, if the thing has a dock icon, do this. Otherwise, if it has a taskbar, do this. So
you still write a lot for us?
kind of. I mean, it works all right. I haven't played with 2.5 at all as far as the SDK. But it is nice that, I mean, once you do get something going, I mean, if you're just using HTML and JavaScript, which I haven't used ActionScript, I don't really know what that's all about. But, this obviously works just like Titanium or any of those. Once you hook into the API, and it looks the same no matter where you run it, essentially.
Great.
It's great for prototyping. I mean, at W3I, we've used it a couple of different times just to get, in one sprint, an app out in the marketplace, and it's great for that because it, like I said, it's HTML and JavaScript, and you can do more advanced stuff with it. But web developers already know that, So
The other thing is, I would actually mention that the tools are very good. Like, for example, you think for how young it is, it really has actually great memory profiling tools and stuff like that, which actually surprised me. I will say that the tools are relatively mature versus what I expect going into learning it, essentially.
But, it also won Linux Journal as the favorite applications kind of thing. It was one of two major kind of, Dropbox and Adobe Air. So we don't do everything else was like open source. Community supported that kind of thing. So. All right, Windows Phone 7. Here it comes. I don't know what to think. It's a lot of competition out there right now, but Microsoft is a major player, and the previous Windows Mobile was quite popular before it dropped off. So it's launching soon, just a few days. Supports a brand new interface called Metro, and the idea here is I heard a couple of podcasts. They're working on trying to make the icons look like street signs, and they've hired a bunch of people to do research on how the human brain processes visual signals and that kind of thing. Huge marketing budget, and you've probably started seeing the ads on TV. They seem to be going after people who are not necessarily into the phone as gadget kind of market, because they're showing these people like obsessed in their phones. Oh, this is the phone that'll put you out of your phone. So maybe for people who haven't already bought an iPhone and are scared to get into smartphones or something like that.
What's interesting about that is those feature phone users, whether they can actually afford a smartphone with a $100 data plan, to support the phone. So it's like, I think a lot of people are questioning Microsoft's strategy there on whether or not they can make that work. Obviously, with the right carrier relationships, they could probably make it work, but it seems odd.
It'll be really interesting.
I think it was like This Week in Tech or another podcast where they're breaking down that commercial where it's like, get you out of your, it's like, what were they thinking? It's like, so.
Yeah,
Maybe it's a business market. Maybe all they're going after is the commercial business market and not the personal users.
BlackBerry users.
Yeah, basically what BlackBerry did.
Yeah.
Maybe they learned a lesson from the kid. There's a Facebook, I believe there's a Facebook app where you can actually give a permission to your Facebook profile, and it'll play data from that on a simulated phone, so you can at least get an idea of how it works. One thing I've heard is, it looks kind of stupid, but once you see your information on it, it's very immersive.
Yeah.
And it's like emotionally engaging.
Well, they're trying to expand beyond the idea of this one small screen to being more of like there's this field of vision behind there that you can kind of just scroll around through. And it's actually, when you watch the videos, I haven't seen one of these, but when you watch the videos, it looks pretty cool. So developing for Windows Phone 7, it's Silverlight, basically. Silverlight. If you're a Silverlight developer, Windows Phone 7 is going to be a piece of cake for you. They are really trying to avoid anything native. Okay, so everything is going to run on a VM, and they pretty much are saying you can do everything in this .NET Compact framework, right? They've got Visual Studio. They've also released the Express Edition. That's the free edition, so people can download and start playing with it. I did, downloaded it. I got it to, give me my nice little map from Bing and put a pin in it, and that's all the further I got. But a couple of rough spots. Just the phone doesn't support any of the geolocation stuff yet in the emulator, so you have to mock all that stuff out. But otherwise, it's a pretty good development experience. C#, the only language right now. If you're interested in Windows Phone 7, interested in developing for that, there's application certification requirements, which you got to download that and read it first. Basically, that's telling you the nitty-gritty of what they will accept in the store and what they won't. And I think they've done a really good job spelling that out ahead of time. So they're really trying to avoid the sort of gray areas of phone gap and some things aren't accepted and some things are. That's been happening with Apple. So trying to get past that. Windows Marketplace, you have to sign up for a developer's account. It's $99 a year. With that, you can post 5 free apps, okay? An unlimited number of paid apps. So clearly they're trying to sort of give the incentive to developers to post apps to charge for rather than to have a flood of free ones. What do you guys think?
I think the fact that it uses Visual Studio is just, light years ahead of. You saw the demo today.
Yeah.
I've been through different presentations on 7, and working with Xcode, and it's like Visual Studio is like 10 years ahead of Apple in that standpoint, which I think is huge.
Very true.
But they need to have devices in the market.
Yeah, from a developer perspective, even if you don't know Silverlight really isn't that bad as far as, of course, your code behind it's all C#, so easy, right? And XAML, syntax for Silverlight's really not that bad, even if you don't know WPF. Even if you only know ASP.NET, it's like, it kind of makes sense when you look at it. It's not this big leap in technology, which is very I really like that. It really makes me interested. The other thing is I have a question for if anybody here has actually developed is, it has integration with Xbox Live, which I'm maybe different than everybody else, but it really interests me because I haven't found one like iPhone or Android app that does anything with Xbox Live decently, which tells me is Microsoft doing something special to house that, keep that close to their heart, or does anybody know, like, can you spoof what they're doing over the internet to get this Xbox Live integration on, so you can kind of use that on another phone, or is that, I just want to know how that works essentially, because I think it's really cool, but I want to be able to do it on Android or.
As far as I know, with the Xbox Live stuff on this phone, normal developers can't use live features in their games. They have to be kind of published or run through Microsoft to get special access to use, like what you can see across cable chat and stuff.
Interesting. Do you know if it has like, just for simple things like, I want to sign up my Xbox Live profile just on my phone to monitor my friends or what games they're playing?
Does that? That's called OpenRealize. I believe messaging is.
Okay. So what interests me there is like, they obviously have to be doing that over HTTP or something, but maybe it's proprietary and I don't know how they're doing that. It's really interesting. They have had basically, it is their own thing, I understand that, but it's a monopoly over that interaction.
Yeah.
I'd love to build just a simple Xbox Live app from the Android. I don't know one that exists. Maybe I haven't looked.
Well, isn't Sony supposedly making the next portable PlayStation kind of Android-based phone?
Interesting. So I always want to know, like, who's playing. I don't want to sign on to my Xbox Live on the internet, on the web, or go turn on my Xbox. It's like, I don't look at my phone. Okay, if they're playing, and I'll go run down there.
What Xbox 360 wallpaper apps?
Right. Doesn't do much good.
The thing that I find most compelling about this is, I mean, really, this is a total unknown right now. We really don't know, but to Jeff's point, it's got the, the developer tools are robust and they are well known. Lots and lots of people do .NET. Certainly, if you do something like Unity.NET, this is not hard to pick up. It's a lot less than picking up Objective-C or something else, some other API. And it's brand new. We're how many years into, three and a half years into iPhone, right? And there are 300,000 apps in there. This is brand new. So from a developer perspective, I don't know how it's going to take off. Hopefully, if you develop an app for it, hopefully it takes off gangbusters. But if it does, this is the time, right? So I mentioned this earlier, Palm, HP bought Palm earlier this year. Palm Pre 2's been announced. WebOS 2.0 is going to be the operating system on there. This is another case where it's using the Mojo framework, and that is, again, based on HTML and CSS and standard web kind of technology. So if you're a web developer, you can develop stuff for WebOS with no problem. HP Slate, we're getting into some of the tablets now. It's available now. It's targeted at business apparently. It is quite expensive and it's running Windows 7. So this is a tablet. Most of the tablets that are coming out are running Android. But this looks to be a full-fledged, essentially laptop replacement, but in the tablet form factor. Very interesting. We'll see. I don't think anybody knows what tablets are going to be really successful. Galaxy, we were talking about this earlier. This is an Android tablet. It is, well, actually, I read online this is starting to land now. There's some Verizon shops that got it yesterday. Sprint is going to be selling it with a contract for $400. Verizon will be selling it without a contract for $599. 7-inch, 1 gigahertz processor, and it's got a camera. It does support all the things that you would expect Flash. So, this is really the first major foray into the Android tablet world. We'll see. I think that a lot of people are talking about it. See how it does compared to the iPad.
It's actually a question.
Yeah.
Nobody knows, but there's a distinction in the App Store, Apple App Store today for iPad, iPhone, for resolutions and different features on the iPad. Something similar for this? Does anybody know, or is it you just put it out there and like put in your comments, hey, don't download this if you don't have a tablet? I guess I don't care too much. I just know that there's that distinction on device.
Anybody think about it? We'll see. Okay, so this is a little bit of a change. So there was a news article about some of the first games are getting the Kindle store. So they've had a SDK actually. Amazon's had an SDK. It's called a KDK, Kindle Development Kit, for their e-readers, Kindle, for it's been about 9 months now. It's Java kind of based API, and you're working with an e-ink screen there, so you've got some limits as to what you can do. But there's some games starting to be available. They're estimating, nobody knows how many of these Amazon's actually sold, but they're estimating about 2 million installed base, and literally a handful of apps. So again, that might be an opportunity. It's the same kind of 70-30 split. There are some data restrictions if your app is downloading a lot of stuff, but otherwise that might be an opportunity. And also, we, Barnes & Noble, I work for Barnes & Noble, so I have to kind of let y'all know. Okay. We announced Nook Color. This is an Android tablet. It's primarily an e-reader, but it is, it's got an 800 megahertz ARM processor in it, and it's going to play video and do kind of a lot more than our e-ink Nook does. But the exciting thing here is we also announced our SDK, the Nook Developer SDK, which will be available in a couple of weeks, and you can start developing apps for Nook Color and possibly Nook. I'm not 100% clear on that, although I'll know by next time. But this is, again, they're saying, okay, it'll be more towards e-readers, reader-type apps, but anything that's an Android app now should be easily ported to the Nook. This is kind of interesting because mobile, when I think mobile, I think first sort of smartphone, and then I think tablet. And there's sort of this other category coming up of other devices that, it's not really a true tablet like the Galaxy, but it's going to run apps. And the same thing with the Kindle, it's running apps. So I think there are other opportunities out there in the mobile space.
Will they allow the Kindle?
I don't know.
I think that'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah. Well, and it's running, basically, we have our e-reader app, and Nook, basically Nook for Android, and that's what this runs. So it's actually, when you go to the e-reader, it'll be the same application. BlackBerry Playbook. 7-inch tablet, same size as the Galaxy. As we were talking earlier, BlackBerry remains strong in business and government, and specifically, there was a lot of talk about how the security related to BlackBerry is particularly good, and that's slated to ship next year. But this one will be running, won't be running yet. And last but not least, the rumors continue to be out there about Chrome OS, Google's sort of web-based, cloud-based, I guess, operating system. And there's been numerous rumors of this tablet that's being developed, and possibly in that book, they're talking about these things might ship in November, but these rumors have been out there before, and they've never turned out, to be anything. I don't know if Chrome OS is actually ready to ship on these devices, but it's possible. Those rumors are there. There's lots of rumblings about that right now, so maybe we'll see something new. Well,
It's interesting because what apps are they going to have all this in-house apps on? Did you release it, or
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously they're doing all the Android stuff, so it would be interesting to ship a tablet with the Chrome OS, and you're also Any other questions, comments? Thanks very much.
Thanks. All right, well, I think that's pretty much it for tonight. Just a reminder, our next meeting is on Thursday. Get this right, I'm sorry. 6 to 8 p.m. We'll get some speakers lined up. If you know of anyone, definitely let me know. And also a reminder, next week, Wednesday, .NET user group over at GeoCon. So if you're interested, I'll post a link on the website so you guys can sign up. I think it's on Eventbrite, so you can check that out. But thanks for everybody coming out tonight. Thank you, Matthew, and trying to take off. She had a flight 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, so she'll be back for that. But thanks, everybody, and have a great night.